Welcome back to Das Wagen Garage. As I've shown you guys in the last video, and I've said other places, that I've moved. The car has been moved. And now that it has been moved and I've organized, we are going to be working on some new things, particularly the front suspension. So that includes going back to more PowerFlex parts. So very much thank to that company for having these parts available. Otherwise, I would have not been able to do any of these bushing upgrades. But that's part of what we're going to get into. But as I mentioned, the bushing upgrades. But there's plenty of more of the front suspension to do. So let's get into that. So with the front suspension that I need to take care of is all of this. All of this. From everything from the control arms. The control arms, actually the bushings that we're replacing are going to be the bushings for the control arms particularly. What I do have additionally is, and I'll show you that in a second, is I do have new front hubs. And they're different from the factory ones that are on this car currently. Why? Because the front hubs that I have are for the 86 and up turbos. Why? Because for that hub, in order for it to fit with the new style coilovers, it needs the new hubs. So the old hubs, the uprights themselves, will not fit with the old ones. Or the coilovers will not fit with the old hubs. And 944 Barn and Ludwig have actually done work on a 944 to show you that difference. What they had to do was basically deburr and cut into some of the material for the factory hubs. That was more of a problem than they really needed to. But with doing that, I also need to replace the tie rod ends. I'm going to be redoing the steering column. And like I said, the control arm is going to be taken out. And because it'll be taken out, I'll actually get to doing some modifications to the control arms to increase its stiffness. It's essentially just plate steel, so there's no need for me to upgrade to a tubular arm yet if I can just do some slight modifications on the control arms. Additionally, which I'll show you also, is there are some pieces to the hubs that I have that you'll actually get to like. Some of them are brake upgrades. But I will show you all of that in a second. Oh, and finally, one of the last things I have to do, in order for me to put the new engine into this car, these engine mounts need to go. They are like a polyurethane rubber and old style for the engine mounts, and the engine mounts would sit here, or the engine block would be mounted to the top of this. Well, we're getting rid of that entirely. And I got to unbolt it from underneath. So these go. This will get taken care of, cleaned up, and rebuilt. The subframe arm will be cleaned up. These taken off, control arms taken off, new tie rod ends, new steering. Probably will clean this up. New reservoir for power steering. The whole front end is going to be rebuilt. But we're not taking care of that all in today. What we are taking care of is particularly the control arms. The control arms and the uprights, getting those taken out, modified, new bushings in, swapped in new hubs. The tie rod ends I might connect later. But the tie rod ends I need to replace, as well as the steering work with. So steering might be another episode, but we'll take care of that later. As I've mentioned, there's not a lot for me to take apart on this. The suspension was very simple back in the day. Kind of wish it still was. And if I really wanted to make it more modern, there's a lot of work that I have to do in order to make it such, which is not going to be the case. But tie rod end, two upright bolts. So these two upright bolts. Then down bottom, you have a knuckle that just clamps onto the ball joint. It's very simple. You pretty much have three things to undo. And then the control arm, get to in a second, there's just two bolts you have to undo from that after you undo all of this.
Do note the coilover bolts are 17 millimeter and the ball joint clamp is a 15 millimeter bolt.
Also, my rule of thumb, especially working with older hardware and older equipment, is always replace with new hardware. I can guarantee you it's worth it. Especially if you're like me and you like to use McMaster-Carr, of all places. Find something new. Find something I didn't know. In order for them to fit these bolts onto this hub the way that they did, they used a key slot method of cutting. Key slot of the bolt in order to fit it through. And then they did the same thing with the washer. The more you know. Another reason why it's good to upgrade to more modern hardware, because I doubt they have this available anymore. Now, the other thing I want to get with you is about the uprights, the front uprights. Now, as you can see, this is a 4-piston pod. If you are replacing your factory non-4-piston Brembo brake calipers, then the next part of what I'm about to talk to you about is not relevant. But if you are wanting to replace and upgrade to a 4-piston pod calipers, this next part is important to you. What I was told is, when I went to 944 Barn, is if you have the old uprights, talking about 85 and down, so that would be with this one 84, I had the basic factory uprights and pistons. But if you want to upgrade to the new 4-piston, you're going to need the uprights. So you can buy the 4-piston calipers or get them off of the turbo, but you will need the uprights because the uprights are different. One of the things that is different, and you can probably see, if you have seen Ludwig's video going to 944 Barn and doing some coilover changes, one of the things they notice is that the uprights are different. So he got new uprights, and the coilovers themselves had to be burred or deburred on the corners. That's quite important. So what you need to do when you do get the 4-piston calipers is new uprights. New uprights, and then at the same time you get the new rotors, new pads, and I know that this one is very, very crusty, which I will take care of and replace much of and clean up everything as of later, but that is the important thing when it comes to the front suspension. Control arms, you can change the control arms and you won't have an issue regardless of the model. The uprights, if you're changing for the 4-piston calipers like I will be, is you need new uprights. That was what I was informed, and you can see there are differences. One of the biggest differences is the steering rack arm, and then the 2 arms that hold on the caliper. They're longer and they're different. So again, that's one of the other big things I wanted to mention to you guys, and that's front suspension. So, and I'm playing a Michael Jackson with 2 gloves holding this, but that's the important part. So yeah, that's grody. I don't doubt that I will probably need to replace the bearings on this as well, but I needed to make that note to you. And then once the hardware gets in and we'll put all this together, this won't be cleaned up, but it would be put back on. Now, as I mentioned, is that there are differences in the new style hubs versus the 84 hubs. So this is from my 84. The car is an 84. This is from an 87, I believe. I don't remember exactly what I was told, but this is an 86 plus turbo. Turbo has the 4-piston calipers. Your 84 or non-turbo version does not, and has just the single large piston caliper brake pads. So the main difference you're going to see about these, and you can visually see, is if you're going to be upgrading from the hubs from the old style to the turbo style, you're really going to see is a longer length in the arms to hold the calipers. So that's one of the bigger things. The curvature face holding the coilover is about the same. There's some slight differences. Most of the 8 turbo coilovers have a different curvature face so that there isn't any interferences with the hubs themselves, with the hub itself. But the biggest thing between these two is that you get to have 4 piston calipers.
Now back to disassembly. After disconnecting the shock from the hub, the control arm is connected by 3 bolts. One 19mm bolt through the subframe and 2 17mm bolts for the bushing mount. Before I can drop the subframe, I need to loosen the steering column. There were just 2 11mm nuts used to clamp the rod together. The subframe was just as easy to remove with just 4 19mm bolts. After you drop the subframe, this should make it easier to take out the steering rod in this case. You might actually have to beat it out with a hammer. User discretion advised.
Alright, now the next step after taking all of that out is entirely up to what you're about to do next. If you are keeping the original control arm, then what I recommend you to do is replace the bushings at least. Ball joints if you have them. This is an 84. These ball joints are riveted. So I am doing something different, and I am ordering a brand new one, and I will put in new bushings in the process. If you are ordering tubular arms that already come with ball joints and all of that jazz, if you're ordering something different, then what I'm talking about is not dependent on what you're about to do next. I will say is at minimum, regardless what you're doing, at minimum, replace the hardware. A lot of manufacturers will recommend you replace torque to yield hardware or stressed hardware. That, of course, includes engine hardware and suspension hardware. If you are like me, and replacing the arm entirely, I got bushings from PowerFlex. You can too. I can put that link in the description and show you where. But from here, moving forward, we're about to do the entire process in reverse. So let's get to it.
I will reiterate this again and state it is best to upgrade or replace your hardware. For these 4 bolts for the subframe, I chose to go with the yellow chromate gold, a grade 10. That's a 10.9 ISO grade, and they hold up pretty well. If you are like me installing new replacement control arms, I did use PowerFlex bushings for this control arm. However, my friend and I had to do some serious modifications to make these work. These bushings do not exactly fit these control arms, and I somewhat struggled with putting these bushings in at the subframe. However, if you do this method, they do work. Alternatively, I would still recommend getting upgraded control arms, especially tubular frame arms or the newer aluminum style. The last thing for these control arms was to install the ball joints. All of these parts thankfully came from Rock Auto, and these were really easy to install.
bolt through. So the other thing you do need to know is that some of these balls joints might be of a different size. So some of these are going to be 19 millimeter, or this hole is going to be a 19 millimeter and you have a ball joint that is 17 millimeter. There are going to be some differences, I have learned. Not from this, but from others that have told me. So keep that in mind when you are putting these in, if I had not already mentioned that. Now, get to install this and we'll close out.
I will say I did struggle at first to get the knuckle on. However, with some wiggling, it fits just right. The other side had no problem.
The hubs are made out of cast aluminum, so I spent the time cleaning them up best I could. Some of the surfaces are grody still. It's going to be fine, especially when I put on new rotor. It's going to be fine. Maybe eventually I'll be taking out these studs, but that I can do later. And then I replaced the bearings on the inside. Spent some time having to hammer out these bearing races, and then put the new bearing races in, and they're good to go. So what I'm about to do is actually grease up the bearings themselves and put them in. Get this slotted on here best I can, and we'll be done with this, and then the fronts will be good to go. So all that will be done after putting these on will be putting the wheels on, car's on the ground, ready for the next thing. So I'm gonna get the bearings greased up and stuff as much grease as I can in here, and then we'll be good to go.
After you replace the bearings and the grease, do note the collar nut does need the key washer behind it in order to align just right for the Allen bolt, so you can lock it down right.
Well, now that I've got the hubs back on, I can actually work on putting the car back together somewhat by putting the steering rack in. And you guys won't be seeing me do that, because all I'm going to do is replace the tie rod ends, clean up the steering rack, because it's already yellow chromate coated, so it's good. And power steering, reservoir, all that jazz will just come later. But that will be a later project. But for now, I need to focus on getting the car back on the ground. Why? The car may or may not be getting some additional paint in the future. Some body panels being adjusted or painted. We'll see. So the car's going to get a nice little overhaul and spend some good time on it. Until then, I appreciate you guys for sticking around, hanging out, watching my videos. If you're new to this channel, I've got plenty of other videos that you can watch. I've got the rear suspension I worked on. Engine I finally tore down. Well, I've got the engine kit now, so I'll need to build that eventually. So if you want to stick around, leave a like, subscribe. I'll show you guys more on this long and wonderful project that I am working on. Thank you for sticking around with me, and stay tuned for the next video on Das Garage. See you guys.